What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Now today I've got for you a brand new subreddit that I've never covered before. So yesterday we had a look at r/IDOWorkHereLady. Now that is of course a fan's favorite. By the way, if you haven't seen that yet, go and watch that now before you watch this one. But this subreddit is actually IDOWorkHereLady. Now it's very small at the moment, only about 35,000 members, but I've read some of the stories, they are so good. So yeah, pretty much the title describes it all. It's the opposite of r/IDOWorkHereLady. So stupid customers come into stores, think some person doesn't work there, but actually they do. Anyway, let's get into an example, it will all make sense. Oh, you're good friends with the owner? I must have amnesia. Okay, bit of background. I'm female, currently 35, and I joined the Navy straight out of high school in 03 and was medically discharged in 06, and have made several friends in Cali while I was there. In 2006, I started a small business making lighted decorations. To start with, I did everything myself, but as time went on, I hired others. By 2008, I had a small crew of 5 working for me, but in 09 it really grew and I needed to get at least an additional 5 people. But I was looking for 10 to better keep up with orders. Around this time, I hired someone in a management position because I would be gone for a bit as a friend in Cali had been in a really bad accident and I was going to see them. Now a bit turned into 3 weeks. Now this is an entirely different story that won't show up in r/entitled parents at the request of my friend before I returned home. I got back on Saturday morning and spent the day getting caught up on work and checking in with the manager on hires and sales that happened while I was gone. He informed me we had 12 new hires because 2 of the workers quit while I was gone. Now I do need to state that we have 3 office cubicles, mine, the manager's, and front desk. Front desk, FD, answered calls, took orders, and accepted customer complaints for me to deal with. On Saturday and Sunday, the front desk is closed. It turns out that one of the new hires was the front desk. Monday morning, I'm in my office doing paperwork when I hear the front desk enter her office. I step out, introduce myself, and before I can say anything, I'm confronted by FD. She has a Karen hairdo that is a vibrant orange and a voice like Fran from The Nanny. It went something like this. Who the F are you and why are you in the owner's office? Me? I'm the owner. Who the F are you to talk like that to me? At this time, MG, the manager, enters from the back and the front desk doesn't see him. I'm front desk and you are not the owner. He and I are close and personal. I kid you not, she actually purred the word friends. Now the temporary manager comes in looking very confused. What is going on here? I talk over the front desk babbling. Apparently I need to go to the hospital because I have amnesia and she is a close personal friend and I'm a he. F you pig, you're not the owner. Actually she is the owner and I don't believe we will be needing your services anymore. At that you can literally see the light leave her eyes as she realized she messed up. I ended up selling the business 5 years ago to the manager. To this day, remembering the look on her face still makes me chuckle, and the manager uses the story with new hires as a reminder to be careful how you speak to people. You never know, they could be your boss. Yeah, this is a very good point because even if you weren't her boss, you could have been any number of important people in her boss's life or important to the business. And also, even if you weren't, if you were someone sketchy, for example, that had no place being there, she handled that entirely the wrong way. Like, don't swear, come on. That is so unprofessional. That could have been any person. A manager, a boss, a client, it doesn't matter. A random person. Don't swear. Anyway, that was a great story to kick us off and introduce us all to the subreddit. Thank you very much for that, OP. Now, hopefully you all understand how this subreddit works at this point, so let's move on to our second story. I'm not a scammer. I actually work for a real support company. I was accused of fraudulently impersonating an employee of a company I actually work for. Years ago, I worked doing call center tech support for a legitimate US-based company. We serve mostly elderly clients. The way it worked, they'd pay a subscription and we were on call 24/7 as much as they needed. We could remotely access their PCs to fix them, log in to show them how to do something, low-level computer training, on par with basic computer classes you might see at a community college, etc. This service wasn't cheap, easily in excess of $100 a month, but justifiable given that most customers would call a couple times a week for one thing or another and could take a couple hours per call. Several of our customers were deaf and they would call us via a teletype service. For those who don't know, the deaf caller types via text chat or signs via video chat with a third-party service who then calls and speaks for them, relaying the message over the phone to the person on the other end. They are supposed to be impartial and convey messages word for word. It's essentially a translator job. You don't inject commentary into the discussion, just relay the message as precisely as possible. However, some of the smaller services only staff a few dozen operators and have frequent dealings with the same customers. So there's a sense of familiarity that can arise, and sometimes that impartiality is compromised. And it's a hard job to fill. You need someone who has typing skills rivaling a court reporter and fluent in ASL, who's also willing to work trashy hours for minimum wage. So sometimes they just put up with trashy employees to maintain staffing. A customer called us using one such teletype service for help removing some malware from his computer. Initially, all went according to plan. In the course of removing the malware, he needed to reboot his PC, which means he would be disconnected from the teletype operator who he was communicating with via that PC. So when the computer reboots, I reconnect to his PC and he connects to the service again. This time he gets a different operator, some guy named Jared, who he apparently had interacted with before. Mind you, the call was unnecessary. I can see his computer screen and everything he's typing to the teletype operator. I could have chatted with him directly through the PC, but it wasn't my call. So this Jared dude, serving as our go-between, decides I'm a scammer and he's going to warn my customer. He starts putting words in my mouth, things I did not say, completely unaware I can see all of this on the customer's computer. He remarks that he can't understand me through my heavy Indian accent. I'm a white guy born in the US and couldn't fake a convincing Indian accent if I tried. He starts getting mildly racist, explaining to Bill, my customer, that part of his disability is that he can't hear my accent. And if he could, he would hang up immediately and know it was a scam. Although, to be honest, he's not wrong, just lying about my having such an accent, lol. He keeps making these little asides with the customer, which I can see in the chat, telling him I don't actually work for the company I claim to work for and warning him not to give me a credit card. I never asked for one. Bill's a subscriber. I've had his number for years and charge a predetermined amount monthly per hour contract. So Jared said, "He doesn't work for XYZ company. They're just saying that, lying about you having a computer virus to take your money. That company would never hire a guy like him." I get how we can think that. We've all seen this scam before. In the right context, it's not bad advice. But he doesn't have all the facts, like that Bill has been my client for years, that we have a contract and he was getting charged the same if he called me or not. This wasn't a case of a customer returning some scammer's voicemail, he was calling a service vendor he had existed dealings with. So I open up Notepad on Bill's desktop and start typing to him. "Sir, I can assure you I did not ask for a credit card number, nor will I. I can see the chat screen and half of what I'm saying is not being conveyed at all, and most of what he is typing to you I did not say. Also, he's not telling me what you're typing, or when he does, he's conveying it in a very hostile tone." He types back in the Notepad window, "Yeah, you're talking to Jared. I've dealt with him before. He's a butt, sorry. He's supposed to quote us word for word, but I've had some suspicions about him for a while. Complained a few times, but nothing ever comes of it." So I address Jared. "Hey, Jared, you realize I can see Bill's screen as we talk, right? I do work for XYZ company, bro, and I can prove it." Dead frickin' silence. "You want to put your supervisor on the phone there, buddy? I'd love to show him these chat logs, and of course, I'm recording the call on my end. I'll send him a copy." So, Bill got his teletype service comped for a few months. Many apologies from the service. Jared got canned. I removed the malware, and Bill reached out to me via email thanking me a few weeks later, and he had a few stories to tell. Apparently, he learned from the others at the teletype company that Jared had been up to some other shenanigans as well. Customers he didn't like, he would do passive-aggressive stuff, like mess up pizza orders and dinner reservations, or accidentally transpose numbers so credit cards would be declined or people would be unable to make a return phone call. He had a long history of douchebaggery that could be summed up to minor mistakes, but judging by the frequency and nature, must have been deliberate. His employer apparently didn't keep good records or retain call recordings for very long, so the company had a hard time firing him. This one time he actually broke the rules, really trying to help a customer. He honestly thought I was a scammer and he was trying to do something good, and forgot that other call centers keep really good records and be willing to share them. What irked us the most wasn't learning of his other passive-aggressive stunts. You kind of expect trashy service from anyone you deal with on the phone. It was the white knight mentality. He was so happy to charge in as the hero with no idea what he was getting into. He was going to save people from themselves by imposing his own superior judgment. He was actually exploiting a disability to do that. Had I not been able to see the screen, neither Bill or myself would have known what the other was saying. And this ignorant idiot would have been proud of his deception and actually thought he was a good person because because of it. It's so condescending. Even if his intentions were good, I am glad he got fired. And I just want to say, most teletype operators do their jobs extremely well. I've worked with many over the years, and this was an isolated incident in my experience. You usually forget that the person you're speaking with isn't the actual caller, they're that good. This was just one guy on a power trip, abusing his position for the sake of his own ego. Being the gatekeeper to other people's communications with the world is actually a lot more power than many people can or should be trusted with. You know what, I kinda wonder whether his motivations with your call were all that good. Otherwise, why would he make stuff up like that you have an accent? Sounded like he just enjoyed playing with people. If he genuinely cared about his client, I think he'd actually listen to what you were saying and then really make his mind up, weighing up the factors, right? But saying that you had an Indian accent when you clearly didn't, I'm not sure that he has a good heart. Moving on to our final story, I am not hallucinating my treatment. I think and hope this fits here as it relates to someone else, although I was involved and they did work there. Some years ago, I had a short outpatient procedure which caused me to have a serious infection. I was rushed back to hospital by ambulance and spent a total of 10 days there with something verging on sepsis. I spent the first 24 hours in a clinical decision unit, not the nicest of places, but I was running a serious temperature and didn't notice much. Rules and targets meant that within 24 hours I had to be discharged or moved to a ward. After 23.5 hours, I was on a ward. It was late evening. I was fixed up with a cannula and a drip, antibiotics which in the end didn't work, and I settled down to sleep. I was reasonably comfortable, and although ill, I was feeling a bit more normal. I was woken at about 3 AM by the patient in the next bed having an incident, which I will gloss over for reasons of delicacy. I looked around to find a large fresh blood stain on my sheets. In my rather restless sleep, I had ripped out my cannula. I pressed the call button. A very nice young guy arrived. The nursing station was in sight from my bed, and there was a group of 4 or 5 people there, including the guy who came over, all dressed in black trousers and high-necked black tunics, in addition to 2 nurses who I recognized from earlier. He very efficiently and painlessly reinserted the cannula and cleaned me up. I went back to sleep. He didn't change the sheets but covered it up to save a major disturbance at that time of night. Next morning after breakfast, 2 nurses came round to change sheets for everyone. Mine were a mess, so I explained what had happened. They looked very wary and said there were no male nurses on the ward. I explained that the guy was in a black jacket. They looked at me strangely and said there were no workers in black uniforms. I insisted that I had been treated by the person I had described, but they wouldn't have it. Eventually, in sweet, calming voices, they started to agree with everything I said. Obviously, they were humoring me. They went on with their work. A bit later, I saw them discussing something with the charge nurse, with the occasional glance in my direction. I was now getting worried and beginning to doubt myself. Then one of them came back over, beaming uncomfortably. I thought, this is it. She then, rather hesitantly, explained that a party of student doctors had been touring night shifts the previous night. Unknown to her or her colleague, they had a new design of uniform in black. I was sane after all, and he did work there. Ah, well there you go. I can imagine in that position, like being in hospital, being very ill, it's quite easy to think that you might be hallucinating. But yeah, it's good that you got some justification in the end. To be fair though, I don't really blame the nurses in this one. They had no idea that the students were around, so it's okay. Anyway guys, that is going to do it for this episode, this first episode of r/IDOWorkHereLady. If you did enjoy it, leave a like and drop a comment saying if you want more or not. With that all being said, watch another video right now if you haven't already. A lot of you might have missed this one. And I will see you all later this evening with another episode of r/Entitled Parents.